The untold story of Jimi Hendrix, more than a musical genius. The boy who heard colors. The world, for James Marshall Hendrix, was never just a collection of sounds. From his earliest memories, it was a vibrant, swirling tapestry where notes had hues, melodies painted landscapes, and rhythms pulsed with tangible textures. Born on November 27, 1942, in Seattle, Washington, to Lucille Jeter and James Allen "Al" Hendrix, Jimi's childhood was a kaleidoscope of hardship and nascent wonder, a stark contrast to the dazzling spectacle he would later become. His early years were marked by instability. His mother, Lucille, a spirited but troubled woman, struggled with alcoholism and often left Jimi and his younger brother Leon in the care of relatives or friends. Al, his father, was frequently absent, serving in the military during World War II and later working odd jobs to make ends meet. The family moved constantly, from one cramped apartment to another, each dwelling a temporary haven against the backdrop of poverty and neglect. Jimi often found solace in the quiet corners of these transient homes, observing the world with an intensity that belied his tender age. It was in this environment of flux that Jimi's unique sensory perception, a form of synesthesia, began to manifest. He didn't just hear music, he saw it. A blues riff might shimmer with shades of indigo and purple, a high-pitched note could flash brilliant yellow, and a deep bass line would rumble with earthy browns and reds. This internal visual symphony was both a gift and a private world, a way to process the often chaotic and emotionally charged atmosphere around him. He rarely spoke of it, perhaps sensing its uniqueness, but it profoundly shaped his understanding and approach to music. His first true instrument wasn't a guitar, but a broom. He would strum it, mimicking the sounds he heard on the radio, the raw, visceral blues of Muddy Waters, the smooth crooning of Nat King Cole, the vibrant R&B of Little Richard. These sounds, imbued with their own visual palettes in his mind, became his escape, his language, his nascent identity. He was a shy, introverted boy, often bullied for his quiet demeanor and mixed heritage, but when he played his broom, he was transported, a king in his own sonic kingdom. Al, despite his struggles, recognized his son's burgeoning passion. In 1958, he bought Jimi his first acoustic guitar for $5. It was a battered, one-stringed wonder, but to Jimi, it was a portal. He spent countless hours with it, his fingers calloused and aching, trying to coax out the sounds he heard in his head. He had no formal training, no lessons, just an insatiable curiosity and an innate connection to the instrument. He learned by listening, by mimicking, by experimenting. He would listen to records, slow them down, and try to replicate every nuance, every bend, every vibrato. His left-handedness, initially a challenge on a right-handed guitar, became a distinctive part of his style, forcing him to adapt and innovate from the very beginning. The guitar became his confidant, his voice. It allowed him to express the emotions he struggled to articulate verbally, the loneliness, the longing, the joy, the frustration. He would play for hours in his room, sometimes in the dark, letting the music flow through him, painting his internal world with sound and color. His father, though often bewildered by the sheer volume and intensity of his son's practice, understood that this was more than a hobby, it was a calling. As he entered his teenage years, Jimi's musical taste broadened. He discovered the electrifying blues of B.B. King, John Lee Hooker, and Robert Johnson, whose raw emotion resonated deeply with his own experiences. He was drawn to the showmanship of Chuck Berry and Little Richard, recognizing the power of performance to captivate and transcend. He started playing in local Seattle bands, like the Velvet Ones and the Rocking Kings, often borrowing guitars because he couldn't afford his own. These early gigs, in dimly lit clubs and community centers, were his first taste of live performance, a place where his shyness could momentarily dissolve into the energy of the music. But even as his musical talent blossomed, the instability of his home life persisted. His mother passed away in 1958, a profound loss that deepened his introspective nature. He dropped out of Garfield High School, finding the structured environment stifling and irrelevant to his true passion. The streets of Seattle, with their vibrant music scene and undercurrents of struggle, became his real classroom. He was a young man on the cusp, brimming with untapped potential, a quiet observer absorbing every sound, every color, every emotion, preparing for a future he couldn't yet imagine. The boy who heard colors was slowly, painstakingly, learning to paint his own masterpiece. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Jimi's formative years, please consider liking this story and subscribing for more untold tales of music legends. The path from the gritty streets of Seattle to the glittering stages of the world was anything but linear for Jimi Hendrix. In May 1961, faced with a choice between jail time for riding in stolen cars or joining the Army, Jimi chose the latter. He enlisted in the U.S. Army and was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division, stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The military, with its rigid discipline and conformity, was an anathema to his free spirit. He was a dreamer, a musician, not a soldier. His time in the Army was short-lived and fraught with difficulty. He struggled with the strict rules, often falling asleep on duty, missing formations, and generally being a misfit. His commanding officers noted his lack of motivation and his constant preoccupation with his guitar, which he would play incessantly in the barracks, much to the annoyance of some and the admiration of others. It was during this period that he met Billy Cox, a fellow soldier and bassist, who would become a lifelong friend and musical collaborator. Together, they formed a band called the King Casuals, playing at Army clubs and local venues, offering Jimi a brief respite from the military grind. However, Jimi's military career ended abruptly after just over a year. He sustained an ankle injury during a parachute jump, which led to his honorable discharge in June 1962. While the official reason was medical, many speculate that his unsuitability for military life played a significant role. The Army, for all its discomfort, had provided him with a brief period of stability and, crucially, connected him with other musicians. It was a detour that, paradoxically, set him firmly on his musical course. Freed from military obligations, Jimi plunged headfirst into the itinerant life of a professional musician. He joined Billy Cox in Clarksville, Tennessee, and then embarked on what would become known as the Chitlin Circuit, a network of venues across the southern and eastern United States that catered to African-American audiences. For the next 4 years, Jimi was a sideman, a journeyman guitarist for a succession of R&B, soul, and blues acts. He played with the likes of Curtis Knight and the Squires, the Isley Brothers, Little Richard, and King Curtis. This period was a crucible for Jimi's talent. He honed his stage presence, learning from the flamboyant showmanship of artists like Little Richard, whose wild energy and theatricality left a lasting impression. He absorbed the nuances of various musical styles, from the tight arrangements of R&B to the raw improvisation of the blues. He learned the discipline of playing in a band, of supporting a lead singer, and of finding his voice within a collective sound. But even as a sideman, Jimi's unique style began to emerge. His solos were often too wild, too experimental, too loud for the bandleaders he worked for. He was frequently fired for upstaging the main act, his electrifying guitar work drawing too much attention away from the star. His time with Little Richard, though brief, was particularly impactful. Richard, a master showman, taught Jimi about stagecraft and the importance of connecting with an audience. Yet, Richard also found Jimi's playing too unconventional, too flashy, and eventually let him go. These experiences, while frustrating, only solidified Jimi's resolve to forge his own path. He knew his music was different, that it couldn't be contained within the traditional structures of R&B. The journey took him through Nashville, a city steeped in musical tradition, where he further refined his blues and country influences. Then, in 1964, he moved to New York City, drawn by the vibrant music scene of Greenwich Village. It was here that he truly began to find his artistic footing. He played in countless small clubs, jamming with whoever would have him, experimenting with feedback, distortion, and the nascent possibilities of the electric guitar. He was a regular at the Café Wa, the Cheetah Club, and other legendary venues, slowly building a reputation as a guitarist unlike any other. He formed his own band, Jimi James and the Blue Flames, playing extended, improvisational sets that showcased his burgeoning genius. He was still largely unknown outside of the New York club circuit, but those who saw him play knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. His guitar wasn't just an instrument. It was an extension of his body, a conduit for his soul. He manipulated it with his teeth, behind his back, between his legs, not just for showmanship, but as a natural expression of his boundless energy and creativity. He was pushing the boundaries of what an electric guitar could do, exploring its sonic potential in ways no one had before. What do you think was the most crucial experience for Jimi during his sideman days that shaped his unique style? Share your thoughts in the comments below. He was a sponge, absorbing every influence, every technique, every sound, and filtering it through his unique synesthetic perception. The years on the Chitlin circuit, the countless hours in smoky clubs, the rejections, the constant struggle for recognition, all of it forged the raw talent into a diamond. He was no longer just a sideman. He was a force waiting to be unleashed, a musical visionary on the cusp of changing the world. The stage was set for his next, monumental chapter. The turning point in Jimi Hendrix's career arrived in the summer of 1966, not in the bustling clubs of New York, but in a chance encounter that would forever alter the course of rock and roll. Linda Keith, then girlfriend of Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards, saw Jimi perform at the Café Wa in Greenwich Village. She was mesmerized by his raw talent, his electrifying stage presence, and his utterly unique approach to the guitar. Convinced she had witnessed a genius, she tried to introduce him to various music industry figures in New York, but none shared her vision. They saw a talented blues guitarist, but failed to grasp the revolutionary potential simmering beneath the surface. Undeterred, Keith introduced Jimi to Chas Chandler, the bassist for The Animals, who was looking to transition into artist management and production. Chandler, too, was instantly captivated. He saw not just a guitarist, but a complete artist, a performer who could transcend genres and captivate audiences on a global scale. He offered Jimi a deal: come to London, and he would make him a star. For Jimi, who had spent years toiling in obscurity, the offer was a lifeline, a chance to finally unleash his full creative power. In September 1966, Jimi Hendrix arrived in London, a city then at the epicenter of a cultural revolution. The timing was perfect. The British music scene was vibrant, experimental, and hungry for new sounds. Chandler quickly set about forming a band around Jimi, recruiting drummer Mitch Mitchell, a jazz-influenced powerhouse, and bassist Noel Redding, a guitarist by trade who adapted quickly to the bass. Thus, the Jimi Hendrix Experience was born. Their debut performance at the Bag O'Nails Club in London was legendary. Word spread like wildfire through the city's music elite. Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Pete Townsend, and members of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were among those who witnessed Jimi's explosive talent. Clapton, then considered the reigning guitar god, reportedly dropped his jaw in disbelief, realizing he had just seen the future of guitar playing. Jimi's sound was unlike anything heard before, a ferocious blend of blues, R&B, rock, and psychedelia, amplified by his innovative use of feedback, distortion, and the wah-wah pedal. He didn't just play the guitar, he wrestled with it, made love to it, and coaxed sounds from it that seemed to defy physics. The Experience quickly became the hottest act in London. Their first single, a cover of Billy Roberts' Hey Joe, released in December 1966, shot up the UK charts. This was followed by Purple Haze and The Wind Cries Mary, both showcasing Jimi's lyrical prowess and his ability to craft melodic, yet intensely powerful songs. His debut album, Are You Experienced?, released in May 1967, was a sonic masterpiece, a groundbreaking fusion of blues, rock, and psychedelic exploration that redefined the possibilities of the electric guitar and studio recording. Tracks like Foxy Lady, Fire, and Third Stone from the Sun were not just songs. They were sonic journeys, each note imbued with Jimi's unique vision. Despite their immense success in the UK and Europe, the Jimi Hendrix Experience remained largely unknown in the United States. That changed dramatically in June 1967, with their performance at the Monterey International Pop Festival. Introduced by Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones as the most exciting performer I've ever heard, Jimi took the stage and delivered a performance that became instantly iconic. He played with an intensity and passion that captivated the audience, culminating in the legendary moment where he knelt before his Fender Stratocaster, doused it in lighter fluid, and set it ablaze, smashing it to pieces in a fiery crescendo. This act of musical sacrifice was more than just showmanship. It was a visceral expression of his art, a symbolic offering to the gods of rock and roll. The images and footage of Monterey Pop introduced Jimi Hendrix to America in the most spectacular way possible. He was not just a musician. He was a phenomenon, a shamanistic figure who channeled raw energy through his instrument. The performance cemented his status as a global superstar and ushered in a new era of rock music. The subsequent years saw the Experience release two more seminal albums, Axis, Bold as Love, 1967, and Electric Ladyland, 1968. Axis showcased a more refined, melodic side of Jimi, while Electric Ladyland was a sprawling, ambitious double album that pushed the boundaries of studio recording, featuring extended jams, intricate arrangements, and collaborations with various artists. Songs like Voodoo Child, Slight Return, All Along the Watchtower, a Bob Dylan cover that Dylan himself praised as definitive, and Crosstown Traffic became instant classics, demonstrating Jimi's unparalleled versatility and creative depth. Jimi Hendrix was not just a guitarist. He was a composer, a lyricist, a producer, and a visionary. He approached music with an almost scientific curiosity, constantly experimenting with sound, texture, and dynamics. His live performances were legendary for their improvisation, his ability to stretch songs into epic sonic explorations, and his magnetic stage presence. He was a shy man off stage, often soft-spoken and introspective, but with a guitar in his hands, he transformed into a towering figure of raw power and unbridled expression. The London calling had been answered, and the world would never be the same. The London era was just the beginning. Subscribe to follow Jimi's incredible journey through the peak of his fame and beyond. The meteoric rise to fame brought with it an immense weight. By 1968, Jimi Hendrix was arguably the biggest rock star in the world, a cultural icon whose influence permeated music, fashion, and social consciousness. But beneath the dazzling spectacle of his performances and the groundbreaking innovation of his music, Jimi was a complex, often troubled individual grappling with the pressures of superstardom, creative expectations, and personal demons. The relentless touring schedule was grueling. The Jimi Hendrix Experience played hundreds of shows, crisscrossing continents, often performing multiple times a day. This constant grind, coupled with the demands of recording and the ever-present media scrutiny, began to take its toll. Jimi, an inherently private and sensitive soul, found the loss of anonymity deeply unsettling. He yearned for creative freedom, but the machinery of the music industry often pushed him towards commercial expectations. His relationships within the band also began to fray. Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell, while talented musicians, sometimes struggled to keep up with Jimi's rapidly evolving musical vision. Jimi's desire for extended improvisations and experimental arrangements often clashed with their more structured approach. The recording sessions for Electric Ladyland were particularly tense, marked by long hours, numerous takes, and a revolving door of guest musicians, reflecting Jimi's perfectionism and his search for the exact sounds he heard in his head. The Experience, despite its iconic status, was ultimately a vehicle for Jimi's singular genius, and that genius was pushing beyond its original confines. The summer of 1969 brought one of Jimi's most iconic performances, Woodstock. Headlining the legendary festival, he delivered a mesmerizing, 2-hour set to a dwindling but devoted crowd. His rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner, a searing, feedback-laden deconstruction of the American anthem, became a powerful anti-war statement and a defining moment of the counterculture era. It was a testament to his ability to imbue his music with profound social and political commentary, transforming a national symbol into a cry for peace and protest. Yet, even this triumph was tinged with exhaustion and the growing sense of isolation. Following Woodstock, the Jimi Hendrix Experience officially disbanded. Jimi was eager to explore new musical directions, to move beyond the psychedelic rock trio format. He formed a new group, Band of Gypsies, with his old army friend Billy Cox on bass and Buddy Miles on drums. This incarnation saw Jimi delve deeper into funk, soul, and R&B, showcasing a grittier, more groove-oriented side of his playing. Their live album, recorded at the Fillmore East on New Year's Eve 1969 and New Year's Day 1970, captured this powerful, albeit short-lived, musical chapter. Songs like Machine Gun were raw, extended improvisations that spoke to the turbulent times and Jimi's own internal struggles. Offstage, Jimi's personal life was a whirlwind of relationships, both romantic and platonic, often complicated by his fame and his own insecurities. He was generous to a fault, often supporting friends and hangers-on, but this also left him vulnerable to exploitation. He struggled with trust, unsure of who genuinely cared for him and who was simply drawn to his celebrity. His shyness often manifested as aloofness, leading to misunderstandings and a deepening sense of loneliness. The pressures of fame also led to increased drug use. While Jimi was never a heavy drug user in the way some of his peers were, he experimented with various substances, including LSD, marijuana, and amphetamines, often as a way to cope with exhaustion, anxiety, and the constant demands on his creativity. These substances, while sometimes fueling his artistic exploration, also contributed to his physical and mental decline. In 1970, Jimi embarked on his most ambitious project, building Electric Lady Studios in New York City. This state-of-the-art recording facility was designed to be a creative sanctuary, a place where he could freely experiment and bring his complex musical visions to life without the constraints of commercial studios. He poured his heart, soul, and considerable finances into its creation, seeing it as his legacy, a place where music could truly be free. If Jimi's relentless pursuit of musical evolution resonates with you, give this story a like to show your appreciation for his artistry. However, the studio's completion coincided with a period of intense personal turmoil. He was exhausted, creatively drained, and increasingly disillusioned with the music industry. His final tour dates were often marred by erratic performances, cancellations, and a visible weariness. He was searching for something new, a deeper spiritual connection in his music, but the path was unclear, and the weight of his genius, coupled with the relentless demands of his career, was becoming unbearable. The boy who heard colors was now painting with shades of fatigue and despair, his vibrant palette slowly dimming under the immense pressure. The final months of Jimi Hendrix's life were a poignant blend of creative yearning and profound exhaustion. By the summer of 1970, the relentless pace of his career had taken its toll. He was physically and mentally drained, struggling with sleep deprivation, the pressures of his management, and the constant demands from his entourage and the public. His vision for new music was evolving, moving towards more jazz and funk influences, but he found it increasingly difficult to articulate and execute amidst the chaos. He had disbanded Band of Gypsies and briefly reunited with Mitch Mitchell and Billy Cox for what was dubbed the Cry of Love Tour. While there were moments of brilliance, the tour was also marked by cancellations and uneven performances, reflecting Jimi's fragile state. He was searching for a new sound, a new direction, but the path was obscured by fatigue and the lingering shadows of his past. On September 18, 1970, Jimi Hendrix died in London at the age of 27. The official cause of death was aspiration of vomit due to barbiturate-related intoxication. The circumstances surrounding his death remain a subject of speculation and sadness, but the underlying narrative points to a young man overwhelmed by the very success he had so desperately sought. He was found unresponsive in the apartment of his girlfriend, Monica Damman, and despite efforts to revive him, he was pronounced dead at St. Mary Abbott's Hospital. The world reeled from the shock of losing such a monumental talent at the peak of his creative powers. Jimi's death sent shockwaves through the music world and beyond. He joined the tragic 27 Club, a grim roster of influential musicians who died at that young age. His passing left an unfillable void, a silence where once there had been a symphony of innovation and raw emotion. Yet, even in death, Jimi Hendrix's influence only grew. His legacy is not merely that of a guitar virtuoso, but of a cultural revolutionary. He shattered conventions, not just in music, but in performance, fashion, and identity. He was a black artist who transcended racial barriers, becoming a global icon whose appeal crossed all demographics. He showed the world that a guitar could be more than just an instrument. It could be a voice, a paintbrush, a weapon, a lover, a spiritual conduit. His impact on music is immeasurable. Every rock guitarist who came after him, from Eddie Van Halen to John Frusciante, owes a debt to Jimi Hendrix. He pioneered the use of feedback, distortion, and effects pedals as integral parts of musical expression, transforming noise into art. He expanded the sonic vocabulary of the electric guitar, pushing it into realms previously unimaginable. His improvisational genius, his ability to weave complex melodic lines with raw, visceral power, remains unparalleled. Beyond the technical prowess, Jimi's music was deeply human. It spoke of love, longing, cosmic wonder, social injustice, and the search for truth. Songs like Little Wing revealed a tender, poetic side, while Voodoo Child, Slight Return, showcased his untamed, blues-infused power. He was a poet of the electric age, his lyrics often abstract and evocative, painting pictures with words as vividly as he did with sound. His personal philosophy, though rarely articulated in grand statements, was evident in his music and his actions. He believed in freedom, in breaking down barriers, and in the power of love and unity. He was a gentle soul who found his loudest voice through his instrument, using it to challenge norms and inspire generations. He was a man who, despite his shyness, dared to be utterly himself, even when it meant being misunderstood. Today, Jimi Hendrix remains an enduring icon. His albums continue to sell millions, his music is constantly rediscovered by new generations, and his image is instantly recognizable. Electric Lady Studios, his final creative sanctuary, continues to operate as a legendary recording facility, a testament to his vision. His childhood home in Seattle has been preserved, and his grave in Renton, Washington, is a pilgrimage site for fans from around the world. The untold story of Jimi Hendrix is one of a shy, sensitive boy who heard colors and transformed them into sound. It's the story of a sideman who refused to be confined, a visionary who pushed the boundaries of his instrument and his art. It's the story of a man who grappled with the immense weight of his genius, the pressures of fame, and the complexities of his own heart. He was more than a musical genius. He was a human being, flawed and magnificent, who left an indelible mark on the world. His music, vibrant and alive, continues to resonate, reminding us that true artistry transcends time, and that some voices, even when silenced too soon, echo forever in our hearts. What does Jimi Hendrix mean to you, and how has his music impacted your life? Share your reflections in the comments, and subscribe for more explorations into the lives of musical icons.